And the next tool that we're going to talk about here is uh, column. Actually, as you can see, structural and architectural column. Firstly, I want to talk about architectural columns, and then following that we will go through structural column as well. However, as we are going to talk about Revit architecture, so we don't want to talk about Revit structure and structural columns so deep, okay? But we have talked about these structural columns and all the other structural elements in detail in our Revit structure course. In fact, we use architectural columns as decorative columns for our projects actually. I mean, we behave the architectural columns like this, okay? Just to make the things more beautiful, okay? For example, where we have added or used structural columns, we use architectural columns to design these structural columns and make them more decorative. For instance, suppose that here we got a space, watch this part, like this way, and then if I select the structural column, metal columns, steel columns actually, then I want to add this into the project. For example, this type, the dimensions are not important for us right now. Structural, like this way, height, level 2, and then I add these. Then I want to use the architectural columns to make these structural columns more decorative, that we can use the architectural columns, and then I add them exactly on these structural ones, and then we can change them, represent them in other shapes and geometries except a box. Okay, this is the main function and usage of the architectural columns, and we do not use this for on the grid or on the axis or for at the first phase of the project. And note that the architectural columns inherits the specified materials of the walls. I mean, here if I join or connect these two elements, you'll see that the column inherits the layers of the wall. As you can see, watch this. You see the layers of the wall, that the column includes them if we join them. Here is the result, and note that it only inherits the materials of the architectural elements, not the structural elements. Okay, even if we join them. And if I change the detail levels, for example, coarse, watch this. And the architectural columns inherits the materials, specified materials for the walls. For example, if you specify a fill pattern, then you'll see that it inherits the patterns as well in coarse detail level. Watch this. If I join the column to the wall again, like this way, and if you want to remove the fill pattern that the column has inherited, you have to separate these two elements from each other, okay? Or just to consider some space between them or separate them like this way. This was about the basics about architectural columns, their functions, their usages. But in the continuation, I want to talk about placing architectural columns. The architectural columns, are simple. You just need to click on columns, columns architectural. Then you'll see some options here in option bar. The first one, firstly you should just click to add them. Here we can rotate after placing the columns. It means that if you check it, then after placing it, you can rotate them, okay? And it enables you to rotate the elements in the specified angle, like 45 degrees, as you can see, or I uncheck it. The next one, height or depth. Height and then the levels for the top. For example, level 2, we talked about it, and room bounding. It means that if we are specified to preoccupy the space of the room by the columns or not. Here, as you can see, I'm just filling the space by adding them. So here, if I click on room and then I show the area, watch this, 61 square meters. And if I consider a color for this to show you the area, watch this. Then if I select these rooms and then I uncheck room bounding, you'll see the area has increased because of removing the columns. And we usually check room bounding since when we are adding columns to the room or to the project, we're occupying the space. But if you just want to know the total area of a room, you just have to uncheck room bounding. So you use it based on your needs. This was about room bounding, that you can check it or uncheck it, that I recommend you to keep it checked. The next one, next items are shown after placement, like top offset, base offset, constraints. I mean, if I select these, watch this, base offset 1 meter or minus 1 meter for top and bottom or base. And we talked about the axis and grids as well. Here, if I draw these, and then I want to add the architectural columns on the grids or axis like this. Then if I move the grid, the columns are moved too. But if I uncheck move with grids, then as you can see, I can't move the columns with the grids. And if I select it and then I open edit type, here we got some built-in or predefined properties, and as you are concerned, the architectural columns behave similar to walls. I mean, if I select this edit type, watch this, coarse scale fill pattern. Here we can specify a fill pattern for the columns to show them in the coarse level of detail. For instance, spiders color and then hidden lines, and then when we cut it, then it shows the material in coarse level of detail, as you can see. And if I use match properties to associate the properties to other elements or columns, watch this. If I set them apart from the wall, then you'll see the concrete fill pattern that we just specified to the first column. And then here we can specify the material like gypsum board. Watch this, wallboard. I click on OK to specify it. Well done. Then I wait for it. Wait for a second. Apply and OK. In the next part, we got the dimensions. For instance, 500s in 500s. Apply and OK. And then in this part, we can consider the top offset or base offset for these. Check this out. Like this way. 0. And here we have changed the instance. And the rest of them are repetitive. This was the process of adding columns and also properties.